My name is Robert Kirsch. I'm a professor at Arizona State University in the US, and I am a former fellow at the Center for Apocalyptic and Post-Apocalyptic Studies. Where we are right now in Mexico is a really important place to think about the apocalypse, and especially the post-apocalypse, to get a sense of what kinds of historical continuities we have, what are the historical ruptures, how do we conceive of social and historical change in a way that might produce a qualitatively different and better world. For me, the apocalypse is about sort of completing transitions. A main area of my research is this inability to see futures. So if you'll notice behind me, we have the Angel of Independence being dwarfed by these gigantic banks. And so what I look at is, in an era of neoliberal development and neoliberalization, how that prevents us from articulating and pursuing a politics that might produce a different and, I hope, better world. One really great thing about the murals is that it shows a lot of the typical features of class struggles, right? You'll see over here very typical figures in a lot of these movements. But what I think is really interesting and really vibrant is the representation about the resistance movements from the more rural areas. And that's something that I think really needs to be emphasized when you're looking at these different class struggles around the world. We're here at this mural by José Clemente Orozco. And this mural represents Benito Juárez as leading the People's Army during the uprising of '57, which established a republic. I think what's really interesting that we see here are a couple of things. Number one, along the bottom is the mummified body of the Emperor Maximilian, sort of being carried into the underworld by those that supported him. So members of the ruling class, the monarchic families, a lot of the religious figures that we see who supported the monarchy. But the other thing that's really interesting is on this left side here, we see representatives of the People's Army. And you can tell that they look like they've been through a really tough battle, but that they still find within themselves the ability to press on, to finish the fight, and to establish a republic. And so this all happens over, again, the watchful gaze of Benito Juárez. But I think it really emphasizes the importance of the persistence of people's armies to establish that independence. I think what this means to me, in a broader sense, in terms of apocalyptic thinking, is that we see this represents in some ways an interregnum, where, like Antonio Gramsci says, the old world is dead, but the new cannot be born. And I think this represents this kind of shift, where things are changing, things are evolving, things are getting difficult, but there's still a possibility that after that, there can be something established that finds more human fulfillment. And so for me, that's where an apocalyptic rationality really helps me understand these kinds of struggles. So we get out of this notion that they're just cyclical, or that they're just sort of, well, there's an uprising here, there's an uprising there, but rather that we think in terms of establishing a new world. And that to me is sort of the upside of apocalyptic thinking. Yeah, I think what Adolfo managed to accomplish in his exhibition is showing this sort of turn, this constant upheaval, changing, evolution. And he does that in both archaeological and social time. And so he really presents the span, I think, of human history. And what I was trying to get at in my talk is, again, this notion of that we're in this sort of interregnum historically. And I worry that in my research, I find that when we think too much about getting into bunkers and protecting ourselves from real and imagined threats, that we lose track of the ability to see what these people saw, which was a better world on the horizon. So in my talk, I was expressing my concern about the inability to think about a future, which, however tumultuous and however difficult this process represents, there's still that vision, and I think we're starting to lose that. So that's what I was trying to focus on.